was 26 years old. I didn't realize at 26 I signed voluntary termination papers and I was out without a job. It was 11:30 in the morning. I went to the Hilton downtown, had lunch, had a beer, and then said it's time to go to work. I left without a job, without savings, and had a credit card with a $5,000 limit on it. And you go to Staples and you find the clearance speakerphone and you're plugging in the phone, you realize it's on clearance because you have to get so close to the microphone. The hotel is $29 a night. So I think it's all these moments of sacrifice. I spent 10 weeks every holiday season in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for 10 years doing the same audit for the same folks that were my first 3 customers. They look back as they get promoted or able to do things with their families where they go, that sacrifice, that failure, the resilience I showed really shaped who I am today.
Thanks so much for being here. When you think back to the earliest days, what's a moment that feels like crystal clear in your body? The stress, the excitement, the holy crap, this might actually work feeling.
I think it was when we got our first customer. So I was 26 years old. Arthur Andersen was crumbling with Enron. I didn't realize at 26 I signed voluntary termination papers and I was out without a job. No severance, couldn't file for unemployment. It was 11:30 in the morning. I went to the Hilton downtown, had lunch, had a beer, and then said it's time to go to work. And drafted our website, incorporated, got a tax ID number with the IRS. You know, I'd be on the phone with the IRS at 5:30 p.m. And I was, and got the tax ID number. And then Monday delivered our first contract to, at that time, it was GTE, TSI, it was now Cineverse, you know, publicly traded company. And I had our contract with our letterhead and me signing as president. And I was like, wow, this is actually something that someone signs, I have to go deliver on. It's real. And you felt the responsibility of it. And then over time, I think for me, it's been seeing the people I work with get married, have kids, their kids grow, and you just feel the sense of pride of the fact of, we have 770 people, but the number of people that rely on you to make the right decisions, not in the office, that affects their kids, affects their mortgages, affects their kids' college tuition. And I enjoy the fiduciary responsibility of that. And so I think I constantly hear, you know, think of the journey and be happy about the journey, but I guess more of these outcome moments where I see others being excited that I just go, wow, it feels surreal. And I feel like there's actually a marked legacy from what we started.
That's really cool. Just thinking about how if that like emergency situation didn't happen, who knows how long it would have taken you to come to that realization that this is the path that you were going to go on. So.
And it wasn't the path.
Right.
I think about, I'm a big planner. I had created an Excel spreadsheet that showed when I was 22, I would retire at 49. I would make partner at Arthur Andersen at 41. I had this whole spreadsheet figured out and I would be done. And then Enron happened. I didn't go to school to say, let me be an entrepreneur, or I went in going, I'm going to leave at some point to be an entrepreneur, to do my own thing. I enjoyed what I did. I enjoyed how I worked. I enjoyed that time, the big 5 accounting firms. I enjoyed what Arthur Andersen stood for and the prestige of working at a global organization. And I thought I was going to stay there through retirement. I had no intention of leaving and starting a company. It was the impetus of the Enron debacle that caused all of this. It's the best thing that's happened to me and my family, and I think others that interact with me.
That's really just such a bright side to a story that we all, remember such the other way. So Was there a problem in the industry that made you confident you could fix it and build something to make it better?
There was accounting firms, and especially the big accounting firms, are a great conglomeration of bright people. You know, they're young, they're go-getters. You don't have somebody in the company who's been there 25 years and is stagnant in a role. If they've been there 2.5 years or stagnant, they probably are counseled out. So you had all these people that were go-getters. And they did a great job of the traditional financial audit needs of global companies and then the international and local tax needs of companies. What they did not do a great job of was the role of technology in business and how to assess security controls around that. And I really operated like a sole proprietorship inside of Arthur Andersen. It's been crazy that, you know, multi-billion-dollar company, and it's almost like a sole proprietorship where the customers of Unisys and Cineverse only knew me and they interacted with me. There was nobody above me that they interacted with. And so when Andersen imploded, I saw this void of the fact of, what if this is all that I do? What if I create a firm that this is all we do and what we solve and have the focus and the resources behind it? And that's really what I wanted to focus around, and it worked out. It's, you know, again, in 2002, I didn't think in 2026 we'd be talking about being in this industry for 24 years because the industry didn't even exist at that time. And now through my first company and now my second company, the top 3 global providers in the world, 2 of the 3 were started here, and I started here in Tampa, and it's crazy to think that that's how the industry started.
That's just really so cool for Tampa and just so exciting, and how big these companies have grown. Let me just ask you, is there a story from the early days you've never been asked to tell, but like shaped like what everything that kind of came after?
I think there were moments of resilience and perseverance that came up, and I'll say humbleness around things. You know, I left Arthur Andersen without a job, without savings, and had a credit card with a $5,000 limit on it. And you go to Staples and you find the clearance speakerphone, and you're plugging in the phone. You realize it's on clearance because you have to get so close to the microphone for you to be heard. And it's going to Jacksonville and doing an audit up there, and having to iron my clothes to go out to the customer. I have to relinquish my driver's license because the hotel is $29 a night. So I think it's all these moments of sacrifice. I spent 10 weeks every holiday season in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for 10 years doing the same audit for the same folks that were my first 3 customers. And so I think these moments of sacrifice where you look back and go, each one of those moments led to where it is. And then now it's the same thing that the people do that come work with us at A-LIGN. They make this sacrifice, and hopefully they look back as they get promoted or able to do things with their families where they go, that sacrifice, that failure, the resilience I showed really shaped who I am today and what decisions I'll make in the future. So I think for me, it was all these moments of failure and sacrifice that makes you so grateful for the successes. That's what I tell people. Like, everyone wants to celebrate your successes. No one's there. You know, failure is an orphan and success has 1,000 fathers, you know, and that's the same way that I feel that these failures that I said, no one's watching, no one saw these failures, and it's how I recover from them, that others will see my successes, but they'll never see the failures from it, you know, because people don't focus as much on that.
Well, or no one was paying attention to all these small businesses that they're not in the business journals and getting cover stories when they're that size. And then everyone just thinks you woke up one day with this gigantic business, when the story about the iron is great. I feel like that just speaks so clearly to anyone who started a business, and just to know that you just got to keep going. You know,
you just keep going. You rode in 34E in the back of the plane in the middle seat. You know, everything you did throughout this time got you to where you were today. And I think I think you're exactly right. People in this entrepreneurship has this sexy sort of feel to it, and you go raise capital, but really it's about what's the impact that you've had from people's lives in building a business. And it comes from the sacrifices and fiscal conservatism, which I think in the Tampa Bay area 20 years ago, no one knew about. And now I joke how many private equity firms are coming to Tampa, headquartered in Tampa, are coming here all the time that want to interact with you. Before, they thought we were unsophisticated sellers, unsophisticated CEOs, most likely from state schools in the state of Florida. And so we can maybe pull something over on these people. And now it's been where they go, these people know how to operate within budgets, resource constraint, and they've got resiliency, and they're scrappy. And that's what private equity likes now. And we've shown that through the returns of private equity.
Well, something we have in common is that we are both Florida State grads, and I always said Florida State builds salespeople, but I just have to ask. So, how did Florida State shape your mindset and your leadership style, and even your confidence that you could build something like this?
Florida State is such a welcoming community, and they're all about raising everybody up. There's not this where you feel like elbow pushing you out and everything else. You actually feel the proverbial hand on your back going, we want you to succeed. How do we help you succeed? You're one of us. We're going to welcome you in first and help you, and we're not going to judge you and then welcome you in. So I think Florida State created this environment where inclusiveness is in giving people opportunity and understanding networking, and I think also understanding that we're better together than going solo. I think Florida State instilled that from the very beginning, and maybe that was through, I know you and I have been through the Bobby Bowden era, and maybe that was how Coach Bowden thought about things, and that's what attracted us to Florida State, and I think sort of the culture of Florida State. And so it has shaped me, and I think, everybody that you interact with at Florida State in this bond that you have is all about raising Florida State. It's not about how do I get ahead of somebody else at Florida State. People are really concerned about, hey, I want to do this for the university. How do I help you achieve what you need to achieve so it can help the university, and vice versa. So I think that Florida State has shaped me, that saying, we're in for the long term as well. We're going to interact with you as a student. We're going to teach you these things. We're going to shape you. And then we're going to create these bonds that you have with people in college, or like you and I, bonds that you're going to have later in life, that the premise and sort of the foundation is built on Florida State, which I think is pretty amazing.
It's really awesome. We say Seminole family, and I feel like it's always really just lived out in anyone we meet. Just to like change topics a little bit to like culture that you've built. You've really built this like people first culture in a field known for being a little more rigid and technical. What is the heartbeat of that culture?
I said when the company was smaller, I could fly around the country or maybe around the globe and sort of instill the culture of why people matter. That I always say I'm the gun or shovel CEO. If you call me at 2 a.m., do I need to bring a gun or a shovel? I show up for both, and I think this mindset, I am not the smartest person in the room, but I want to bring together the people who are the smartest people in the room. And for these people to know that I'll basically do anything that will help them succeed. And so I think this culture, people say constantly is servant leadership, but I think it's about really telling people, I know you can do more. I'm going to push you beyond that. And it's not to push you beyond it for my own goodness and my own success. It's really about pushing you beyond yourself for your success and what that makes you feel, what that makes you be able to do for your family. And I think that's how our leaders feel. And I constantly will say, we went through our last private equity deal, and it was a situation where we gave more people option money than they really had earned to date. But it was only because we got a great offer to transact earlier. And I said, these people signed up for 5 years. We transacted at 4. They should get the money. And the private equity firm says, but Scott, that takes this amount of money out of your own pocket. And I said, it doesn't matter. This is a long game that we have to play. And it's more important for these people. And when you see that type of trust they have in you in Bulgaria, we started out 6 years ago with one single mom in Bulgaria who started in our office. And I said, gosh, what a choice that you made with us to go in with a 6-year-old and say, I'm going to go to work at this company who they've never had an international office. I'm going to start an office in Bulgaria, which I didn't even know where Bulgaria was 6 years ago. And I'm like, that trust that they have, you want to make sure you deliver on that back. Where that old adage of the jar and they're putting the marbles in, and that's because eventually I'm going to need to pull a marble out, and you can see how you built trust up. And that's what I try to instill in them is because I'm so grateful for the fact that they took a chance on, I say me, because it's really the culture of me that started out, and then it's shaped over time to include others to make this entire company where it is. But I'm always so grateful for the fact that they said, yeah, I'm going to go work at A-LIGN. Or I said to somebody, I go, how did I go home to tell your spouse, hey, I'm going to go work for A-LIGN in India where they've never had an office, and I have 2 kids, small kids at home, and I'm leaving a global accounting firm to go work for this guy who's never again, been to India before. And thank goodness you took the chance, because look at the success that we've had now and how they've really shaped the company. The people side, whenever I hang out my cleats, this is going to be the thing that the people side I will miss the most. Because you can do the work anywhere. And why do you do it at A-LIGN? Because you enjoy the people you do it with.
That's just such a great thing with, like you're saying, everyone could work really anywhere. But if you are going to get up every day and go somewhere, you want to really enjoy the people you're around and build relationships with them. And you can tell that with your people, that they feel that experience is really remarkable. And to be here in our backyard is really great that you've created that opportunity for so many people. So is there a moment with an employee or team member that you'll never forget or reminded you like why you built the company?
Is some of the emotion that I get out of. And so I think there's moments where, people will take me out to lunch who've been working at the company for a while, and they go, Scott, I've accumulated $1 million in assets, and I never thought I'd be able to achieve that. Scott, you're the first person I called after my family to tell you that my wife's pregnant. I've had 3 deaths of employees during the time. And so those sort of mark you as well. When you have to call the spouse or you call the parent and you tell them how much you care about people. So I think I really enjoy the responsibility that I have and sort of the connectivity. And I think these life moments with people really move me, and the fact that they consider me that close when, as you said, at the end of the day, our relationship started professionally, not personally. And they also know we have a set of guidelines and obligations and responsibilities. And if you don't do those things, we will have to separate from each other. And I think they know at the end of the day that I don't blend the two. I live by both virtues as strong as I can be, knowing that this is a professional relationship first.
I think people rise to high standards, right?
Yeah.
And then they feel, knowing that the person sitting next to them is at that high standard too, probably just makes that feel so much better for everyone. I would imagine, no one wants to sit next to someone they think isn't pulling their weight. And if you know that everyone is in it for the long game like that, I think that makes such a great experience.
I think that's a huge piece of it, that they know, hey, I'm going to work really hard, and this other person next to me in the cubicle is working just as hard. And I always say, like, if you slack off, they're going to eat you alive in this company. Not because they're just saying you're wasting time. You're not in here. One of our 4 values is being all in. Doesn't mean you're always all in at work, but when you're at work, you're all in. And when you're at home, you're all in as well. Let's try to keep those 2 things separate so you can be present with your family. But then when you're here at work, you can be present at work. And so they will really smoke you out quickly in that if you're not acting all in. And so that's why we've had such a focus on leadership development of people, keeping people here in Tampa and growing them, because we have seen that if you are homegrown within our company, the loyalty, the performance, et cetera, is so much greater than, as we talk about football, as bringing in a transfer out of transfer portal to get you through 1 year. Instead, I rather have the development of the person from their freshman year to their senior year. I rather have somebody here out of college and develop them. I joke the woman who's in charge of 70 million of our revenue. She used to babysit my children when she was an intern at USF, and she now has been here 12 years and now has grown into this extremely wonderful professional and a mom as well. And so you see this growth and you're just like, let's go find more of that because it inspires you. And I think then it allows your people to see there is this growth pattern, that time and loyalty matter in a place, and as our culture and our society maybe doesn't value time as much, that it does matter. The loyalty does matter. Not switching does matter. Being around here and growing through the bad times and then being here for the good times and being part of that does really make a difference.
Well, and that's really awesome, because if you're finding the right people, like who have the right personality and the work ethic, you can teach them a lot of the skill set to do if they're coming out of college and they maybe don't have too much experience, but you can mold them. Right?
You can. I used to say we got lucky with who we hired, but we're very straightforward. We have our 4 values that we have as a company. We have target personas, what people we're looking for. We ask the questions to make sure someone is that persona and has those characteristics. So we've taken what I would say in the first 5 years of our 16 years in business, that has been something that's been sort of maybe luck. we systematized it to go identify those things that are successful here and looking at that. And then also, frankly, I always say, I want to make sure people don't come here and they leave within the first year, because we uprooted their personal and professional life to have them come with us, and then all of a sudden it didn't work out. And I want to make sure we identify that quickly. So one of the metrics that we have is reducing the amount of people that leave within a year of coming to A-LIGN, so that we don't have this disruption in their life. I put myself in their shoes. It is disruption in the business's life, yes, but we're larger, we can weather that. The individual may not be able to weather that. They have to go look for another job, or this wasn't what they thought, and they're unhappy, and they have to go home to their spouse or their child and have that conversation. And so I think of all of that and say, how do we reduce that friction and bring people in here that we believe are going to have long-term success? And let's look at that by the numbers. And being an accountant first and foremost, you can look at the data. I always say data takes emotion out of decision making when you do that.
Well, that's just clearly showing how successful that's been for you. So when the business hit growing pains as you were becoming this large company, what internal belief or habit kept you grounded during that time?
During that time, I systematically have my one-on-ones with my direct reports, and it's always the same agenda. It's like, what metrics matter to you that you want to share with me? What roadblocks do you have that I need to take care of for you as well? And then what metrics are we going to go achieve together? Is there anything that I can do to help? And no matter whether it's marketing or finance or delivery or technology, we go through that same agenda. And so that way I can see if we're having similar instances or similar problems across the organization. And then we actually, each time we went through our private equity deals, before we did, I got the group together and we did an offsite. And I said, listen here, we're a family. If we have problems in the family, we need to fix that now. Because once we go through the stress of this process, they're going to try to create factions. They're going to try to break us as we go through this, because that's part of the things that they do to test the company. So let's get all the grievances out right now if we have them. Let's get on the same page. We can disagree in here, but we leave this room and we're a unified front. And every time before we went through a private equity transaction, I got the team together, and I call it sort of our blood oath that we're going to, go do that. And then every November before the start of the year, and we put our plan together, I get the leaders over for dinner, and I'm like, we're taking our blood oath. This is what we all agree, and we're going to commit to each other to go deliver. And this is not about blame. This is about how do we get there together as a team. And so all of our executives, we all have the same bonus program. We all have the same numbers to go achieve as a team. So if we win as a team, we win. If we lose as a team, we lose. This is not about the individual as much as it's about the team. So I think for us, my habits of, again, focusing on the people, making sure there's this trust that they have and the transparency. One year I had a theme of dad's not going to be in the room, and you think about, with children, you have to come up to, you have two children fighting over a toy, you have to figure out who gets their toy. And I said, pretend dad's not in the room. You guys figure out who gets to play with the toy and figure it out yourselves, because you're going to grow. And they really did grow during that time, because I said, dad's not going to come in and decide who's the winner and who's the loser and make nice. You guys are going to have to figure it out, because I want it to be at a point where at some point I may not be here, and you guys need to figure out who gets to play with the toy first and how it gets handled. And that's what I want to grow you all into. They may have thought it was a childish theme to have, but it proved its point, and they grew as individuals.
Well, there's so many themes there that other companies can take and use in their processes as they're growing as well, because that is very repeatable. And I just love the idea of having your whole executive team kind of fighting for the same thing together. Yes. And just know that if someone's having a challenge, someone else can help pull them up, and they're going to be cheering for each other. I feel like that is always a better environment. Of course, but that it just sounds like a much more fun place to work than where it's like you're saying with the elbows.
Yeah.
What does success feel like now compared to what it felt like the day you started the company?
Success when you first start the company is making payroll. I started the company when I was 26, like I was saying, and then I think I had started building a home, and it was supposed to be moved into, and it was May 2nd I started the company. July 2nd we were moving in this house, and got my first paycheck June 28th. If I hadn't gotten that, I don't know. I guess I'd have to figure out what happens if you default and don't move into a house, because I would have that would have happened. So I think about those things, and then from there it was, how do I have 6 months? How do I have 1 month of payroll set up in the company? Then it became 6 months. Then it became a year. Then it became, how do we have 3 different bank accounts with all the banking stuff going on and cyber risk? How do we have 3 bank accounts we can run bank payroll out of if something happens? Because it's so important. If you mess with people's paycheck or their health insurance, they get in. And so I think I thought initially about these things. And now as I look at success, it's really it's through other people's eyes and their smile and their achievements as well. I think when you see how proud people are of the company. And prior to us going through some private equity transactions where I was able to offer ownership to other employees, I was so amazed about how hard they worked for something that they didn't quote own on paper, but they owned in their heart. And I was so moved by their ownership they felt of the company. And that's what I think when you look at that fiduciary responsibility, how you think about my own, I'm an owner on paper, I have the liability, and then you see that they have none of that on paper, but they hold themselves to the same level and they act the same way. And then when you see the success that they have because of it, where again, they bought a house or they did this or they did that, that's where I say now, I was asked in one of my volunteerings at a high school, what makes you happy? I don't know anymore what I do individually that makes me happy. I get so happy watching others be happy and creating an environment where they can be successful. I'm not in there telling them what to do or whispering in their ear or whatever it may be, but this environment where they can feel success as they define it, that's what I get excited about. When you see that smile, it just is like, I did my job. I have done my job of what I was supposed to do to make them feel success. And that's where I get a lot of joy. And so it's become this individual of how do I make payroll? How do I pay the bills, et cetera, to the fact of now we've got that covered and we've had a lot of great things happen, a lot of hard work to get there. But now I look at people and go, they are happy, they're achieving success. And it's a lot of the times, not as much as the professional success, but you see their personal success and you get the most excited about that as well.
Well, I'm sure they could feel that, and that's what they are showing back to you. Professional services can be intense, right? So tell us on the funny side, like what's a funny or absurd situation your team ever encountered on a client engagement that you're allowed to talk about?
There's been a lot that has happened. I think, over time we've had situations where you've gone out to customers and we would have a meeting because there was something that they were concerned about regarding what they thought was our work. One time I sat there and got chewed out for 15 minutes where the person went through this whole thing that we had done wrong. And I just let them go and go and go. And it was about a totally different project. Somehow they thought we had completed this project for them and they didn't complete it at all. And they're just chewing me out for 15 minutes. And then I love just going, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And you're so sorry it happened to me. Why didn't you? I'm like, I wish I actually delivered that service and owned the company that did that. I could do that for you next time better, And so it turned out that a sale came out of it, but I got chewed out for nothing that we had done at all. And I think that's the thing that, you go through. People have good days and they have bad days. And sometimes you just got to be there on the phone and listen to the bad days of it. And so we've had everything from that to, someone calling saying, we just got called by hackers that actually have claimed they've done malware in our environment. They're going to shut it down. It was a family-owned business. I have to call my dad. What do I tell my dad? Is the issue. And then other situations, these family businesses, because we have a lot of small companies as clients, and they grow up. And I was in Boston one time, and it was almost like you had the Godfather movie where there was a Fredo and there was a guy in charge of this part of the business that we nicknamed Fredo because he and his father were just coming from it for him. And you're like, Fredo's going to be gone next year. And so you go out there and Fredo's gone. They did something with them and they were at Italian last names and everything. So it's been interesting. I think it's you have the technical aspect, but it's more about how do I interact with my investors and tell them that? How do I deal with this business partner that I don't want to work with anymore? How do I deal with a family member? How do I tell my father that this occurred? And so the counselor side of it comes through. It's almost like you got to charge a therapy session, and sign a HIPAA form to get in there. So we'd have had different things happen like that for sure. We've got 5,700 customers around the globe, and it's interesting when I get an email from a customer complaining about something. And they may have been with us 10 years and they forget that we've grown to 5,700 customers, and I may not have an exact handle on the intricacies of their work. And so I joked at 200 employees, I knew everybody's name. At 700, I wish I had a better memory to do it. Same thing with 5,700 customers. I can't remember everything we've done for everybody. And they can remember exactly what I said, what I did, et cetera, which I think is great that they care that much about our opinion and guidance that we provide.
Sure. Well, yeah, there's one of you, 5,100.
Yes.
So do you remember a moment when you realized A-LIGN had become bigger than you and it surpassed just being a firm and it became a brand?
Yes. I think when you hear from people, even when you hear from competitors, you guys are everywhere. I'm constantly seeing you on every deal. Then you go, oh my gosh, this brand has occurred. People want to seek the brand out. When you go someplace, they say, yes, I know who you are. I've seen your report before. I think when my son went to Florida State and he called me, he says, Dad, a lot of my friends want to get a job with A-LIGN. I said, well, why are you talking to them about A-LIGN? He goes, I didn't say a word. They know and they've heard about A-LIGN is a great place to work. So I think these forces where you hear from customers, and especially when you hear from competitors, that they see you all the time and what's going on. I mean, I used to see you a lot, but now I see you even more. And you go, gosh, what we're doing is working. And so I think that's the piece of it where I go, it is bigger than what we thought it could be. And then when you see it in different languages and on different continents, that people know who the brand is, it's like, wow. I think every year we have a theme for the company. One year we had a theme of elevate, because even myself, I need to elevate our thinking, because I do think of us as a Tampa local company sometimes. And when $5,000 was a lot of money, I always say, they're like, it's a lot of money. I go, how much is it? Because $5,000 used to be a lot of money back in the day, and now it's not as much money to us. And so how do we think about that? And so sometimes I think I lose perspective because you try to stay grounded and humble in it. And so when you go places and people know exactly who you are and know the brand in different languages, I'm sort of shocked by it, because I still think that it probably isn't outside of Tampa. If somebody in Pasco County doesn't know who we are, and you realize that somebody in Pune, India knows who you are, you're shocked by it.
Just so exciting that you've grown that in such a short period of time. I'm sure it feels like a long time to you, but 16 years is really, that's quick,
I agree with you. I think about, and it doesn't seem that long to achieve what we've achieved, but I think, it's been a great team, and in this Tampa Bay business environment, people do want to lift you up so well, which is awesome.
That's really always great to hear. So if you had to start A-LIGN today, in today's world, what would you do differently?
I've started 2 companies, the second one being A-LIGN, and I always thought everything happens quicker. The mistakes happen quicker as well. And so I think starting A-LIGN, it's at a different inflection point than where we were 16 years ago with AI and how the world is. When I started A-LIGN, it was very localized to the workforce. You didn't have AI, et cetera. Starting A-LIGN now, when you look at the global workforce you have access to, and then you say, I also have access to a workforce that is not even human, being artificial intelligence. I have access to machine workforce as well. And you spoke about it. Professional services is a grind. As I talk about to my kids, if you're going to start a company, do software. Technology sells a lot at a lot higher multiple, doesn't call in sick like people do, et cetera. But I think for me, if I started A-LIGN, I would utilize the technology side more of AI. I would utilize a global workforce. And then on the emotional side, I would enjoy the journey more. I think these outcome dopamine hits that people look for and driven people look for, you often you forget about the process to get there. And that's what you should enjoy more so than the actual outcome.
Well, I'm sure you enjoy it looking back on it. Like, I feel like a lot of those things happen, right? Like with motivated people, type A people, they're just always looking for how they could do the next thing. Then they look back with such great memories most of the time. But
yeah,
like during the time, I didn't really like it at all when I was going through.
No, for sure.
You've built something that impacts companies globally. What's a part of the journey, though, that you do think you're the proudest of?
I get the most proudest of the impact that we've had on the community wherever we are. So we use John Doerr, who was an advisor to Google when they were in a garage, came up with the OKR, the objective and key result. our first objective, we have 5 of them. Our first objective is to make A-LIGN a great place to work. And everyone says that, but let's put the metrics behind it. So what community engagement programs are we going to have in every city where we have a mass of people, 5 or more, that we're going to impact the community on? So I get most proud when I see people volunteering, giving of their dollars, et cetera, because I know how hard they work for that money, and I know how precious their time is as well. So when I look back and I look at the impact that A-LIGN has had and the culture of giving back, we worked very hard, but we were given a great opportunity and the ability to do so. And so giving back to those that may not have that same opportunity, or give back to them and create that opportunity, that's the most proud I get of A-LIGN. And then I'll say, when people join us out of college, you go back and you think about your first job out of college, of how eager you were and how it shaped you and the fond memories that you have of that. And when I say to people, you're going to look back, we're your first job, and I take a lot of responsibility in making their first job successful. I said, you're not going to retire here. My job as a CEO is to make sure you grow personally, professionally, and financially. When you leave here, if you look back and I did those 3 things, I did my job then. And you're going to have lifelong friends from working here. And so when I think of A-LIGN and the moment that you just feel like, wow, it's an amazing company, is the impact on the community. And then when this is their first job, and you set a bar for what a first job is going to be like. Because it's interesting, when people come to us from other companies, they've had experience, they always are, wow, this is unbelievable. Like the CEO welcomes every new employee every 2 weeks when they start. You're on the phone, on video with them, welcoming them. One guy brought his spouse in because she goes, that's a lie. Because he had been there a while. He had been in other positions. He goes, the CEO never does this welcome. It's going to be recorded. And I said, your wife said that? He goes, yeah. I go, bring her in. Let's say hi to her, And they're like shocked. But I mean, those are the things that I do. In India, I realize a lot of the families live together generational. Mm-hmm. And so we put the family on the health insurance, the people's parents on it. Mm-hmm. And for us, it didn't change A-LIGN. It didn't hinder us, but you look at the change it had to them in India, and it was such a big deal. And I said, and then the other side of it for retention, you go, well, I used to only have the spouse saying you shouldn't leave. Now I've got your parents telling you shouldn't leave. And I think it's this point of, they go, people have had other jobs, realize how amazing this place is. One of our board members, who's a wild Yankees fan, he goes, people go retire because they want to be part of the New York Yankees, and they go there for a day to retire as a Yankee, or they go back. Mm-hmm. He goes, this is like the Yankees. People want to be part of this winning culture. And that's what I love about our place and what we've had the impact on people.
Just really so inspiring. And I think that so many people could really, look to that and say, what could we do for our people? And what, like a small cost sometimes to the company that could be just so life-changing to the team member.
Yes.
So when you look back 25 years from now, what do you hope A-LIGN represents?
I want the brand to be here still. I think we built a legacy company. I think we've built a best-in-class company for our industry. I always say, when we don't win work, people made bad buying decisions, we didn't lose. And when other companies and competitors are started, I want them to be part of it, because I think they can bring great things to us, but I think we have a great framework for them to excel, maybe past where they were able to do so before. And so in 25 years, I want to look back and see that the brand is still here. The company is still delivering services that meet the needs of our customers, to instill trust and respect in their stakeholders. And that's could be anything in the cyber world. We don't know in 25 years if it's going to be, super AI robots or what's going to be involved, but that it's still somebody that they say A-LIGN has integrity, they know how to give back, and they're a company that's on the cutting edge, providing great employee and customer experience. And that's really what I want to look back and see that. And then also see that the things that we did early on within the communities have sustained. I oftentimes say, I don't know why we stopped doing things. Like if you're going to stop doing something that you think is not beneficial anymore, let's have a conversation. But I set up these things of, you get the day off to go serve on a community day where you get, and I don't care what you do, just give back. And so I think about those things. I think about our professional development and our employees and our brand that we have. I wanted to continue on, that people go, Scott, because I always say it started with me, but now it's beyond me. It's this brand of A-LIGN is a fierce competitor, and they're a huge advocate for their employee success and their customer success. And I want that to continue. They may be jealous or they may be envious of what we went accomplished, but they never say that company lost its integrity and they've never lost its humble roots. But they're fierce competitors and they want to go win for their employees and their customers consistently. And so that's why I hope I look back in 25 years as not the CEO of A-LIGN, but from enjoying the process and see what A-LIGN's, how it's impacted the people, because that's at the end of the day what I care about is the people side of this business.
Well, that just gave me goosebumps. I think that's going to be, a remarkable brand in this area for a long time to come. Now, we have what we call our lightning round, which is 3 questions, and we ask every guest the same 3 questions. Are really easy. Don't feel you have to overthink it. So, number 1, what is your favorite restaurant here in the Tampa Bay area?
Oh my gosh. I have to say Burns because I love wine, and we talk about, people always go, I can get a better steak here or that, whatever. But the consistency, the warmth, they go back to the people. We've had the same server for the last 17 years. He was through my kids when they were little. We were there this past weekend. We have a family tradition where we get together. We have a New Year's kickoff at Burns. And so Dorsey has been there for Brooks' 16th birthday. He's been there now through graduation of college. And I'm like, this is a great moment. So I think Burns because the unique wine list. I love history. You learn about the region from it. So I would have to say Burns is where we love the overall experience and the people side of it.
Great choice, of course. Now, what about a hype song? Like if you're going into a big presentation or a meeting, is there a song you play that is your get fired up song?
I have a very eclectic ear of music. I listen to a lot of soundtracks that are pure orchestra soundtracks, and so the Gladiator soundtrack is something that I listen to when I go in. I enjoy the whole getting ready for the battle and whatever it is it's going to be. It's a battle if I want to go sell a project to a customer. It's a battle if I'm going in on a private equity deal or I'm going in with my management team. It's not that it's a battle, but I want to get ready and give them the most that I've got. Or if I'm going to see an office in India that I see once a year, it is their Super Bowl. I need to hype myself up because they get to see me in person once a year. And they deserve my best because they were going to want to give me their best. And so I hype myself up listening to Gladiator soundtrack.
I love that. I love it. That's a great answer. And then just finally, what is the best business gift you've ever received?
Again, I think being on the wine, everyone goes, well, he loves wine, so you get the wine baskets, everything else. And those are always appreciated. But when I get something unique to myself, one year I got a numbered Chief Osceola and Renegade portrait that was done, a painting that was done. And it was actually done by an insurance person I never bought insurance from, and they sent it to me for Christmas. And it was a holiday gift. I loved it. Our office manager framed it, and I actually have it in my home office today. It really is it's a perfect, I think, portrayal of who I am and what I love doing. I grew up riding horses. And so I think someone who tied it and did their research and says, he really loves Florida State, here's something that's unique that I can give him, that's probably one of the neatest things that I have received.
That's awesome. Scott, thank you so much. This was so wonderful. And I'm sure everyone's going to learn so much from what you've shared with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.